Welcome to the second Sharpening Systems video, where today we're going to be looking at wheel systems, starting with the powered dry wheel. These tend to come with a support which really is pretty rubbish. Tend to be a little bit flimsy, and also if you set them up in the right place for the bevel angle, certainly with this one and with others I've seen, you can't then move your chisel nicely right across the stone. So I'll just show you quickly how I can improve that on this particular model. Get a bit of ply, nice thick bit, it's going to add some rigidity to it. We want to set the angle up so that we're cutting at the right angle to the stone. So we'll be cutting further up on the stone, but that's not a problem. Set the angle about right. Lock the initial stand together. And then what we need to do is mark off how much of the ply to remove from the back so we can get up close to the stone. That's so we get support right up to where the stone is. So I can mark around the stone onto that piece of ply, and that's what we need to waste so that we can move it in closer to the stone. So you can see that now fits much closer to the stone. We'll get good support and we've got the right angle. We still need to cut a little bit out here so we can attach it around the little bit of gubbins. So I've got that plate screwed on the back. You can then reassemble this. That gives us a nice big base to run the back of the chisel on. We've set it up at about 25° grinding angle there. Just add a bit of candle wax, just make things slip easier, and then you can register the chisel into the stone with your forefinger down here, so you keep the same depth of cut all the way along. Just come backwards and forwards on the stone. Always use the guard that comes with it, and also some safety specs. And it makes a hell of a mess, so I always put something down in front of it to collect the little bits of metal coming off it. To sharpen a chisel or a plane iron, just place the back on the rest, advance it until it just touches the wheel, then lock your forefinger against the rest, hold it down with your thumb and just move it from side to side. Now hopefully you can see the section here in the middle, the grind, which is the curved grind. You can see I haven't come all the way to the edge. If you go all the way to the edge, it becomes very thin, it gets far too hot too quickly, gets to an annealing temperature and softens the edge off. So always leave a bit there and finish that off on a stone. And you can see here a lot of the material that's come off in just that very short grind, and that's really not compatible with your woodwork. So I always put down something to catch that rubbish if you're grinding in the workshop and there's wood around. You don't want to get that onto any of your wood or onto your bench. There are various grinding wheels around. I tend to find that a coarser wheel removes material quickly whilst heating up the blade less, and also anything from about 6 inches and upwards is perfectly adequate. If you're an unplugged woodworker, you might prefer this option, which is the hand cranked grinder. You might have seen me use it a couple of times in previous videos. It really needs a bigger table here for the chisel reference. And you can see the obvious problem I've got with it there is one hand is being used to crank it, and so all your work has to be done, or all your positioning of the chisel has to be done with just one hand. It's a lot more awkward, but it does work. Don't think that by hand cranking you're not going to produce enough heat in the tool to ruin the edge, because you certainly can. So always keep checking. You will feel it does heat up just as it does on the electric one. Now I was showing you the dry grinding wheel on this machine, which has actually got a water wheel at the other end. That gives you the option of water-cooled grinding on this stone, but I picked this up second hand, and I think there was probably some sort of support here for the blade to get the right angle, There's lots of teeth in here, but as it is, there's nothing to be able to register that blade comfortably on the wheel. And in fact, the wheel has been badly used. It's not circular anymore. It's got lots of lumps and bumps in it and needs dressing. But it's a relatively cheap way to get into grinding with water cooling so that you don't heat up the blade too much. Now I think by far the easiest to use is the water-cooled system. I've been using this one for a long time. It's a well-known one. It's got lots of jigs and fixtures to hold the various tools on that you're sharpening. Because we're mainly talking about chisels and plane irons, so I'll just show you this with the chisel. So the chisel's held captive in this clamp, which is then held onto a bar and can be swiveled on and off the stone. So basically the length of chisel that comes through this jig sets the angle at which you're going to be grinding. You can either set it just by eye, looking at the side, at the bevel, or you can use, there's a little angle device here you can use to set it up. Once that's clamped in, set the wheel going, it draws up water so it keeps the blade edge nice and cool, and just work right across the stone. So it's the same as the dry grinding I showed you earlier, except in this case it's water cooled and don't have to worry about grinding right to the edge. One of the other advantages of this system is that all the waste is carried away with the water and it gets dropped into the reservoir at the bottom. Most of them have a magnet in there that just attracts it, and then it's easy to remove as one nice wet lump. Now I hope you can see on this picture that there's two facets here. They're both hollow facets. The first one I did was this little corner here, and that was right across the blade, and it didn't end up square to the edge. And I just wanted to do this to show you that setting it up so you get a nice square edge to the side of the chisel is not just the piece of cake that they tend to tell you it is in all the literature. First of all, the edge you want to be square against has to be up against this hard edge in the clamp, but also you have to adjust these two tensioning knobs on the blade so that you achieve perfect square, and that seems to be somewhere around these two faces being parallel, but again that's going to depend exactly on how parallel your chisel is. And applying unbalanced pressure when you're grinding will throw it out as square too. So you need to play around a little bit if you want it perfectly square. Once you've hollow ground your chisel, bring it to the stones and balance it up on that hollow ground so you're on the tip and on the heel of the bevel. Few strokes just to establish a flat micro bevel on the edge, which is going to be a little bit stronger, and then you can strop it. So I hope you can see there we've got a small flat area on the heel, small flat area right on the edge, in line, in plane at the bevel angle 25 degrees, and then you've got the hollow grind in between. Join me on the next sharpening systems when I'll tell you how I sharpen.